right, let's get started. How are you guys? Tired from lunch? And all the content, all the amazing content. My name is Demian Borba. I'm a product manager at Adobe on this very exciting project called Project Comet. And we're going to talk about that today and a lot more, which is very interesting. You can find me on Twitter. If you have any questions, send us. We are really trying to get as much as possible in terms of feedback. So instead of building this tool and then delivering it, we are really focusing on getting feedback as we build it. So this talk will cover that and a lot of things that can help you not only in your professional life, but also in your personal life. We're going to talk about mindset, creative confidence, these different things that can help you. But we are mainly here to talk about UX. I'm not going to talk about code today. I have a background in code. I was a developer advocate for BlackBerry and then Braintree, PayPal for years. And then now I switched to product. And we're not going to talk about code. But this is something that can become a very good tool that you can use. Not the tool, the product we're building, but everything that I'm presenting here can be very useful for your life, for your personal life. So what is UX? UX, user experience. If you ask 10 people about what UX is, you're going to get 10 different questions. I did that lots of times, and everyone has a different perception. So UX relates to emotions, to feelings, how people feel when they experience something, when they are going through a journey, and that's super interesting. So how can we summarize that in one image? What is good UX? What is bad UX? So this can tell what bad UX is, right? So this person is going from point A to point B, and that's a horrible experience, right? You can tell by her face. On the other side, you can see a very good UX represented very simply there. This guy feels empowered, like he's the king of the world. Cool. So in terms of describing it, when we plan the UX, we use UX design. And in my opinion, UX design is the strategy in place to take a user from point A to point B. It's simple. And the term UX, it was first introduced as a job title in '95 when Don Norman, who's very famous in this UX field, joined Apple as a user experience architect. And he keeps writing books and doing lots of good things. So that's a blog post. If you're interested in learning more about the history of UX, in our blog, in an Adobe blog, and it's super interesting. But here, before we talk about creative mindset and all these different things, let's talk about Project Comet. Who here already heard of Project Comet? Okay, cool. Like 40%, 30% of the audience. So let's see it. Right? Let's see what Project Comet is. So let me get to this place. And if you guys have questions, please ask. Awesome. So this is Project Comet. It's what we plan to be the single tool for UX designers where they can craft amazing UI, very polished, very detailed UI, and also within the same tool, they can prototype to better tell their stories. So all in the same journey. And we are trying to simplify everything that can be presented there. So you can see the toolbar here is very simple. We don't have a lot of tools. And we're really challenging ourselves all the time if we need that or we don't need the specific things. So this is one artboard. I can create multiple artboards if I want to design my UI. I can use presets for iPhone, Android, tablet, as you expect, and I can start adding more. I can select one artboard, I can resize it, I can delete it if I want, and we can go there. I have text, I have all these different things. And I can start building my UI. And one very important concept that we have there is called design at speed of thought. So we really want this to be helping you and not like blocking you from doing stuff. One thing that you can do here, you can drag SVG files here and they just work. We expect to export a lot of very important things for developers as well. And let me show you one thing that's very cool here. So here I have one rectangle and one text that represents a cell in a list. I can come here, I can draw a placeholder for my image. I can make rounded corners very easily. And let's say now I want to make more items here. Like normally you would come here, duplicate this guy. We have good hinting and to help you space things. But this is tedious, right? This is repetitive work. And we don't want you guys to suffer for that. So we created one tool called Repeat Grid. So you can select these items, the image, the background, and the title, and you can call Repeat Grid. And as soon as I do that, this turns to green, and I can repeat my items. This is all vector-based, and I can have as many as I want. I can fine-tune margins here if I want. If I have an iPad version, I can extend this and make it as big as I want. So this is very, very powerful and helps designers. But now let's say I want one image to go here or a group of images to come here. I can, at any point, I can have a placeholder and drag images to that. So let me close this. Here I have some images. Let's say I want an image to go here. I just drag it there and boom, I have an image. And what is cool about that is that it maintains the image there. It doesn't distort. And you can see it's super fast, super polished. But like I mentioned in the beginning, how about sending multiple images here? I can select now a group of images and drag them over, and boom, I have my repeated grid populated, and that saves a lot of time. And if I make it bigger, the flow keeps going. It never ends. So it knows the source, and it keeps bringing information from there. But we know that having duplicated items is good, but we want our content to be unique, right? So you can change the title here to be whatever you want. The content can be unique. And if I move styles around, everything moves. So I can very quickly go from that to this and send it to the back, send it to back, send it to back too. And I can start adding stuff and very quickly design elements here. And then when it's time to have more artboards and link things, I can start prototyping. So I can see my preview mode here. I have this artboard selected, and I have an artboard here. So let's say that when users click on this See More button, I want it to go to this artboard. So I can go to prototype mode, select this button here, and just wire that way. And then I hit play. Let me go back to this, hit play. And then I can have that animation happening. But I don't want to have to recompile everything. So if I want to now make this arrow go back, I just do it that way, slide right. Don't have to recompile, it's all there, and my prototype is working. And we want to keep this running on your cell phone via USB so you can test, share this with stakeholders and get feedback. So all in the same tool. And when it's time to change stuff, you can go back to your design and just change things in real time. And if you have it running on your phone, that will be replicated on your phone. So this is an overview of Project Comet. Do you guys like it? Cool. Maybe it's lunch kicking in. We just entered alpha right now, so it's very, very early. We plan to have a public beta next year, early next year. And the exporting piece there is very, very important. So we're investigating different options. We know it has to be SVG, PNG, all these different things, and we're really investigating. So if you guys have feedback, please send it to us. Yeah, as of now, this is targeting UX designers, but one of my responsibilities in the PM, in the product management team, is extensibility. So we're planning to have a very robust plan for extensibility. So if it's not in the tool, we don't know if it's going to be JavaScript or Objective-C, but it's definitely coming. And that's why we need to talk to developers. But early next year. But let's save the questions for later because I have lots of slides. But yeah, early next year. Cool. Another thing that we are considering as a feature is performance. So this is super fast. And just to prove that, this is another file with lots of artboards. And you can see it runs, this is not a very fast computer, but it runs super fast. Lots of vectors here. This would crash lots of apps nowadays. So we're spending a lot of time there. So let's get back to the presentation. And then we can have lots of questions in the end. So hopefully now you get a sense of Project Comet. You can feel you can help us build this. But one of the big goals for me in this talk is to share this personal view of how you can see challenges and how you can go through challenges. And a lot of the things that I'm talking about is being utilized internally in our team. So the first thing is creative confidence. How many people here think, okay, I'm not creative, that's it? Okay, some, which is good. But I can guarantee that at one point in your life, you were super creative. Ask your mom, right? You can go to drawings that you did in the past, and you can see that you were creative. But something happened along the way that kind of shaped the way you think. You were more like constrained. But it is there, and if you explore that the right way, there are some tools and some exercises that can help you with that. So here you can see that we tend to get less and less creative because we are constrained by, we don't want to take our reputation on the line, we want to keep it safe, let's say. But as kids, we don't care, we're super creative and we take risks. One thing that's very important for me is mindset, and we're going to talk about that. We have neurons, right? And we have an average of 100 billion neurons. And there are studies and more studies that prove that the more you exercise your brain, the more you read, the more you study, the more you go through challenges, more connections are made. So it gets to the point that I saw one time one research that they saw a brain, like a brain really, and they saw wires there. So the more you force it, it's proved that it creates more connections and you become more intelligent. So when I was a developer advocate, I had so many challenges, I had to learn so many things because it changes a lot. But with that mindset, I was able to accomplish lots of things. So don't be afraid of feeling like you cannot do it. So talking about mindset, there's this very good book, if you can read it. It's called Mindset from Carol Dweck. This book changed my life. The way I see things, she spent years of her life analyzing mindset, studying mindset on athletes, on professionals, on kids, adults, old people. And it's proved that through studies that you can get better results. So in the book, she came up with the conclusion that there are two types of mindsets. One is fixed, where the intelligence is fixed. Some people are more intelligent than others, and that's it. There's nothing we can do. They have a bigger IQ. And the other mindset is the growth mindset. So in the book, she goes through a lot of things that prove that when you have a growth mindset and you mix effort with learning, you grow and you achieve amazing results. And she proves that with athletes, Michael Jordan, like coaches. It's super interesting. Another thing that she covers in the book, what I like to highlight is, what do you think? Is it better to praise abilities or effort? Let's say you want to say you are intelligent. Is that good or bad? For a kid, for example. Oh my God, you're super intelligent. That's in the book, in her line of thought, is it is bad because the kid gets that as a label, and the kid doesn't put that at risk anymore. She doesn't like, or he doesn't like to put that at risk. So make sure when you have kids, I just had a kid, if you can praise effort, you know, like make challenge, but not too much because you don't want a crazy kid that wants challenges, and then you don't have peace anymore, right? Yeah, so this is very, very, very important. And the third piece of this talk is one methodology. I like design thinking. How many of you guys heard of design thinking before? Cool. So when you apply a set of processes, you can get to nice results. So you can constrain yourself in different pieces, so it helps a lot. Design thinking is one that I really like. I spent a lot of time being trained here at Stanford, and it's super powerful, right? So it starts with a design challenge, and you're going to see how we're using pieces of design thinking with Project Comet. And then before you do anything, before you start writing one line of code, you talk to users. You talk to people. So UX, innovation, it starts and ends with people. So think about that. Keep that in mind. So once we empathize, then we can define and revisit the problem, the challenge. Is that the real thing that we're trying to tackle? Then we can ideate. This is very fun, and it keeps the team engaged. Prototype, and we're going to talk more about prototyping in a bit. And then we test. And we iterate, and we do more of that. On the personal side, I trained hundreds of developers, entrepreneurs, designers on design thinking. This is one class last year. And it really changes people because they see the world, that if they put the right effort into things and if they learn, they achieve amazing results. The title of my talk was UX superpowers, right? So in my opinion, in my personal opinion, when you combine UX to target UX problems with some sort of process, and you have creative confidence and a growth mindset, that's a superpower. You can be very, very powerful. You have data to inform your decisions. At Adobe, we don't like to use like data-driven decisions. It's data-informed decisions to help us make powerful decisions. And I'm going to talk about Project Comet and show some examples that prove this along the way. So with design thinking, what can be created? You can create products, you can create services, you can create experiences. So we're looking for UX, you can create great experiences with design thinking. And there are some rules along the way. The end result has to be desired. It can be built. It's not like something that has to be in Mars to work. And it has to become real and useful, right? So those are some of the constraints we have. The team, this is part of the team that's working on Project Comet. We have more people working there, but it has to be very cross-functional. And the team has to be involved in all the phases. So we don't separate managers from engineers. We keep everyone, of course they work on code and managers make the decisions, but when we're investigating things, we bring everyone together. Some of the hats that you can wear, this is from another book that's very interesting if you guys can read it. It's not too big, but very powerful. The 10 Faces of Innovation. Some of the mindsets and hats you can wear, for example, the anthropologist. I play the anthropologist a lot at Adobe, so when I talk to people, I have a set of questions that I make in a very neutral way, so I don't force the answer. If it's super silent, keep it silent because that person is thinking. Then you can be the experimenter, you can be the cross-pollinator, you can jump in, we call it a T-shaped person. You can go horizontally to different areas, but you can go deep in one area. The hurdler to face challenges, collaborator, director. So good directors, they let their people shine instead of taking all the credit. So all these different things that help you along the way. And I mentioned that everything starts with a design challenge. So let's see how we are facing that at Adobe. So nowadays, it's more complex than ever to design UI and experiences, right? You agree that you have more screens. Sometimes we don't have a screen. For example, it can be something in your ear that's just voice, and then there's nothing for you to present visually. So challenges and more challenges, the watch, the mobile phones, different sizes. So it is super challenging. And the challenge that we had at Adobe was, the initial challenge was Photoshop and Illustrator. They're super good. They're amazing, amazing tools, but they were not initially designed for UX design. We are doing a lot in terms of improving these products to be very good at it. We have artboards in Photoshop now. We have amazing export of SVG in Illustrator, but that was not the initial idea. Then we go and empathize. So we put ourselves in our users' shoes to see how it works. How can you create empathy? In design thinking, you can create empathy by interviewing people, by observing people. For example, if you ask people, do you have problems buying stuff on Amazon? I'm sure that 100% will say, no, I can buy stuff on Amazon. But if you sit behind and you watch them buy, you see lots of different problems that they have along the way. So observing is really important. We go to companies and we just watch people working in order to improve our decisions. And experience is also another way of creating empathy. Talking about empathy, I'd like to highlight this case, which is super interesting. Like, you can really experience something. At MIT, they have this lab to help senior people to have better lives. And in order to empathize, they created this suit that limits everything, your movements. It's called Age Gain Now Empathy System. And this is how it works. It has all sorts of limitations. This is a reporter from some news company testing the suit in New York in a rainy day. So she can barely move, it's slippery. Looking back is hard because of all the limits of the body. I can totally see my grandfather there. So they had these extra things to limit the movement, to feel things. So she had lots of problems opening, like using an umbrella, because there were limits there. And the mission there was to go on the street and call a cab. Ask for a cab. She was trying to get there. Hard to see. Of course, that's an extreme case, but that generates empathy, right? So they can really see the world through their those lenses. It's heavy, right, to ask for a cab. Cool, so that's one example. Another very interesting thing when we interview people in design thinking, instead of course we want to talk to the average UX designer, but we also want to talk to extreme users. The young one, the very senior one, or if it's like, let's plan the new cart on a supermarket, let's talk to a homeless people that uses that as his home, right? So those kind of things, they bring you insights, because we're not looking for truth. We want insights. We want deep understanding, like insight, like deep understanding of something. And also, like, being the anthropologist, be neutral, curious. Even if you know something, when you interview people, make sure you play the anthropologist role, a curious kid, asking why for every single thing, because that leads to different things. Of course, there's a lot more rules here. For example, you ask for stories instead of just asking whys, and we can spend more time on it, but we don't have too much time. Then we can start creating what we call the empathy map, which is we separate what they say and they do, which is very explicit, from what they think and what they feel. So we combine different people that are similar in this persona that has this thoughts and actions. This is one example, one engineer there unpacking data from interviews that he did. Then we go to the third phase, which is define. So we're going to revisit the case to see if that was the problem. And here we're gonna separate what is explicit, what they say they need, but we're gonna work super hard as creative product managers, engineers, to understand why they need those things. And that's where innovation is and all the possibilities to make something different is. We create these personas based on that separation, so we can separate the needs, explicit things here, and the insights, the implicit things, and then we can create points of view with a formula that's persona X needs something that comes from this left side because, and then we present the insight. And it has to be fun, it has to be engaging. This is like, I trained professors and they were super excited to do that because it is exciting, and if you keep a point of view that's sexy and fun, it keeps the team engaged. At Adobe, we identified some things that were different than our initial thought. We noticed that there are lots of tools tackling different parts of the problem. We had tools that do really well on design, some others do really well on prototyping, and it's growing. There's clearly a gap there. Right? Every day we see more tools trying to tackle these different portions. When it's time to make a change, let's say you do your design, it goes to the prototype mode, and then you test that, it's very hard and expensive to go back to design and change that. It's not very fluid. And you saw that was easier when I did the demo there with our vision of that process. And tools like are limiting creativity because of all this big process. The tool is there not to help, but it's kind of slowing designers down. And one thing that we are listening a lot is that designers, they don't plan ahead like developers that plan everything before. Like, okay, this is my program structure, I'm going to use MVC, or that designers go and explore different things. It's not pre-planned. So that's another very important find there. So just by going that route, we identified different things. Then we go to the ideation portion. Cool. There are some rules there, but it's super fun, right? The number one rule in phase one of ideation is defer judgment. So don't judge. It's hard, but it can be very, very powerful. So in the beginning, we want to divert. So group your team, your cross-functional team, and go for ideas. Literally vomit ideas, right? Here we have some cases of the training I did there. In 1 hour, they were able to get more than 100 ideas, each team, because they follow those rules. And it's engaging, and it gets super crazy. And another picture of them, like after vomiting ideas. But at one point, we need to converge to something that we can work with, right? So when you finish that phase, choose with your team, choose the options you want to work with. For example, one strategy there, you can put stickers on ideas individually, and they can define which ones are more popular, and they can start using them. Then we jump to prototype, which is also super fun. And if we do it the right way, it can save us from future headaches. The main idea with a prototype is because we want to make it tangible, and we want to experience, we want to test that as we go and do small adjustments here and there, show to stakeholders, test with final users, and build it, and learn from it, right? At the D School here in Stanford, they have this phrase, build to think, and they show some cases where it's proved that when you use your hands, you think better, your brain operates better. So that's why you see so many Legos now, like people using, even big companies using Legos. We have a room at Adobe full of Legos. We can go there all the time to play with. And fail often to succeed sooner, right? It's a lot cheaper to fail soon so we can adapt and get to a better point in the future. It can be super cheap. It can be with paper. It can be with very simple things. It doesn't have to be complex. But it brings interactions. People collaborate. People think through ideas. They test different things. They adjust things. One thing that I'd like to show here is one prototype that we did. We never know if it's going to make it to the end product, but this is one prototype that we did for Project Comet. So let me show you the thought behind this. As I showed you, you can copy and paste, but we have repeat grid, so it saves time when you repeat items. This is not new. You saw this before. But then I have a lot of items that are like lorem ipsum, right? It's not super useful, and I can get to problems in the future when I have multiple languages, and it's not super accurate. Of course, I can come here and change this to name 1, name 2, and all these things. But what if I could pull out of a data set that has some things as I go? So we created this prototype, the data panel, and you can bring different things. But it has this pre-baked data there that we can use. But we can also use our own data. For example, here I have a list of names in a text file. I can drop it there, and all of a sudden I have a more realistic list. You can get better, right? Here I have another artboard where I have a menu list with some options, and I want to test different languages, right? So what if I could select this guy here, and I could go to the web, if the internet works. Come on. Oh, there you go. Come on, dismiss. And then I just, it's a prototype. Shoot. Let me close this and open again. 1 second, guys. It works, I promise. So select this, go to the data panel. There you go. Now I'm pulling data from a spreadsheet, right? I can do it here. And this one is not working for some reason. Cool, but then I can really easily, I can adjust UI. I can test different languages by just clicking on my dock there, which is super cool, right? It saves time, and then I can make sure the alignment works. But what if we want things from the internet, like from our real data on the internet? It's probably because it's super slow. All right, you can see as I roll over on some items, it identifies things that are repeated, and I can get information from there just by clicking on those items. I can get then on the bottom, I can get the items. What if I could use images? Just click on the image, and now it's pulling those images from the web right here. To represent something better, I can go to stock.adobe.com, where we have lots of images that we can use. I can search for San Francisco. And then select this placeholder. And I just click here, and all of a sudden I have those images here on my UI. I can copy this here just to prove it knows everything that's there. I can bring my iPad version. And again, content is unique, so I can start doing things. This is very, very powerful, and it's a prototype that maybe if you guys like, do you guys like that? Cool. Then we can bring it to the product. Cool. And then we go to the last phase of design thinking, which is test. So we need to test this with our real users to make sure it's validated. We can do some adjustments. As we show these new prototypes, we can get your feedback, your ideas, and maybe make it get to the product. At Adobe Max, our big conference that was 3 weeks ago, we did an event where we invited some key people to test Comet. The engineers were there, managers were there, designers were there. So they were separated in tables. Each one had its own desk, and then we had people, and we got tons of feedback. And lots of decisions changed because of that feedback. So it's really important to test with your users. Cool. There are some rules as well, and probably the toughest one is the last one. And I'm a developer. I consider myself a developer. That's super hard, right? Like, we create this thing. It's awesome. We love that. But that's very dangerous when we're building innovation and we need to change a lot. So don't fall in love with your ideas. I know it's hard. Okay, and then we got to the end. This is a summary of the process, and we can now iterate and go back to, we don't have to go back to the first phase, we can go back to different phases. What is really important is that keep your team in one phase at a time. Don't jump to like 2 teams working on separate phases. Make sure everyone is working on the same thing. So if you go work for feedback, let's spend time there. If you're prototyping, let's prototype. So it's really important to be focused and keep that approach. And to finish this presentation, do I have audio here? Yes, right? I think so, hopefully. To reinforce this concept of empathy, this video is very powerful, and it can help you understand that a little bit better. And I'd like to close that with this video. Sorry, I ruined the end. That's very good, powerful video. Again, make sure that you keep that in mind. UX, innovation, it starts and ends with people. I'm here, I'll be here on the back, so if you want to see comment, if you want to provide feedback, come talk to me. I have business cards. I really want to make sure I can get your feedback and make it to the tool. So thanks for having me, thanks for your time, and have a great end of the conference.